All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Thursday morning, May the 8th, 2025, and we are continuing our Torah portions this week. This week is a double Torah portion, right? So it's Acharei Mot, which we looked at the Day of Atonement on Tuesday, and then today is Qedoshim. So it's Acharei Mot Qedoshim, which takes us Leviticus 16 through Leviticus 20. So we looked at Leviticus 16 on Tuesday. We're going to look today at Leviticus 19, or most of it. There's so much there, but we're going to do our very best. It's good to be together this morning. I want to thank you for your faithfulness, and in so many ways, just as we gather together daily to be in the Lord's Word, to say, God, speak to me, continue to work in me, and continue to form me into who you want to be, right? Transform me so that I can be transformative. That's really our heart's desire. And so I'm so grateful for your faithfulness, and I want to thank you for your faithfulness in giving to the ministry and enabling us to do the things that we're able to do. And so, together we're making, I believe we're making a difference, not just today, but over the long term. Making God's Word known. And if you haven't downloaded the app, I want to encourage you to do that. You can go to your app store, whether you're on Apple or Google. You can go into the Google Play Store and type in Shalom AZ, download the app, or you can have it on your Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV. And so eventually what we're going to do, just to give you an idea, is eventually what we're going to do is we are going to, because of the way that things work with YouTube and the algorithm on YouTube, we really want to be able to get to make a wider impact on YouTube among people that we don't know yet. But one of the things that's interesting is that live streams actually can negatively, they don't feed the algorithm. And so that, but live is a significant part of what we do. Well, the app enables us to be live, and it's more in-house for the live aspect of it. So either you can be on your phone, on your computer, because if you go to the computer, you go to shalomaz.com and just hit watch. You can watch it within the website there. And so the live will always be available on the app and on Roku, Apple TV, on the website. And then it will later be uploaded to YouTube and so forth. And so that will make everything there uploaded. It will affect us differently in that way. It also allows us, I think, to have, we're going to be doing some other things that feel, I don't know what the right word is, but safer, like for in-house stuff. Because, when you put things out, when you're live and if it does expand, if things can expand the way that we want them to, you're always going to have people that come in and we've experienced this years ago in the past, people that write weird things and it gets awkward. So we can have, so when we are doing different live things on the app, then what we can do are question and answer live streams as well. We can have things that are a little bit more interactive, that have a safer feel to them, because they are among those who are regularly a part of us, who have at least committed enough to download the app to be a part of that. And then we can continue to expand our reach to make God's Word known to other people. So just wanting to give you that idea. So if you haven't downloaded the app, please do that. We're not going to be doing that, making that kind of shift anytime too soon, because we want to make time for there to be adjustment. But within a few months, we'll probably begin to make that kind of shift, and then everything will later be put on YouTube. Okay. Thank you. All right. Good morning, everybody. So today, we're going to be looking at this really incredible passage in Leviticus chapter 19. The title of today's Daily Manna is Holiness in the Corners of Your Fields. Holiness in the corners of your fields. Holiness on the edges, like through and through. Holiness when no one can see it, right? We in this passage we'll see holiness regarding how we treat people who can't see even what we're doing, how we speak to people who can't hear what we're saying. Holiness that is through and through, from the very center of who we are to the very edges of our fields. And so with this Parsha, Qedoshim, the laws of holiness broaden out from the world of the Mikdash, the holy place, the sanctuary, and the priests, to now the whole circle of the Israelites, commanding God's people to be holy. I am the Lord your God, because I, Lord your God, am holy. So something fundamental happens at the beginning of this Parsha. Up until now, Leviticus, Vayikra, has been largely about the priesthood. That's why we call it Leviticus, Levites. It's the priestly offering, and it's been largely about sacrifices, purity, the sanctuary, the priesthood. It's been about the holy place, the holy offerings, the holy people, about the people who minister there, the priests. But now we get this wider picture that this call to holiness expands to the entirety of God's people. Leviticus 19, beginning in verse 1. Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to all the congregation of Bnei Israel." It says, speak to the whole Adat. Right? Adat is like the circle. It's a word actually that has to do with even the witness, a witness. You are my witness, really. The congregation, the Adat is the witness. And it's a picture even of a circle, the congregation that's surrounding. So the Lord in the desert is in his tent, is in the center, and the people surrounding them. And then this is the word for the whole circle, everybody in the circle. And you tell them, Qedoshim, you shall be holy ones. You shall be Qedoshim. It says, because ki kadosh ani Adonai. He says, because holy am I, the Lord. He says, because I myself am holy. So it's not just the spiritual leaders. It's not just the priesthood, as it were, that are called to be holy. It's the whole circle of the children of Israel. All the people in the circle, a whole kingdom of priests. You'll remember, of course, in Exodus 19, the Lord had said this in Exodus 19:6, so as for you, you will be to me a kingdom of Kohanim. So the priesthood extends outward, and you will be a holy nation, right? A nation kadosh, a nation that is holy, set apart. You will be Qedoshim, holy ones. For I, Adonai, your God, am holy. You will be holy. So why? The rationale, because I'm holy. I, the Lord, your God, am holy. So the holiness that God is calling his people to is a reflection of his holiness. The rationale behind the holiness that what he's calling them to is to reflect him. Right? That you will be holy. Why? Because I'm holy. But the question really we have to come down to, and this is super important, is that we seek to grasp a greater understanding of this question, is what is holiness? Because everything that follows in Leviticus 19, in large part, is an exposition or a fleshing out of what that's going to look like. It says holy ones, set apart ones, right? That's what holy is set apart. When we say God is holy, what are we saying about God? We typically think of the word holiness in line with something akin to sort of very stodgy and serious, holy. You have to say it like that, very holy. When you hear the phrase holier than thou, right? It's not typically, especially when we say it with nice King James pronouns like that, holier than you, holier than thou. It's not a warm complimentary phrase. When we're saying God is holy, what we're saying is you're in a category of one. You're set apart. You are, one of my theology professors, I remember he he said it like this. He said, God is holy, and he was quoting his theology professor, said, he is holy other, like WHOLLY, holy other. There is none like him. He is in a league of one. He is perfect and complete and good in every way. He is pure and righteous and sinless, right? You're in a category of one. You are set apart. There's no one that lines up with you. So throughout Leviticus 19, the Lord gives instructions to us, very specific, particular instructions, which we won't have time to go all through all of them today. We're going to hit some of them. And repeatedly, like 13 or 14 times, he will follow the instruction or the group of instructions by saying, Ani Adonai, I am the Lord, and he gives his name. Or, Ani Adonai Elohecha, I am Adonai your God. I am the Lord your God. So that we'll see, and I've got a list of them here. You can look at very quickly. He says in verse 3, it's basically saying to revere your parents and keep my Shabbats. And then he follows that, I am Adonai your God. Ani Adonai Elohechem. He says, don't make any gods for yourselves. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Verse 10, don't gather your gleanings and your leftovers. After he went through a whole number of things, and he says, you're to leave them for the poor and for the outsider. Why? Ani Adonai Elohechem. I am the Lord your God. Verse 14, I am Adonai. Ani Adonai. Verse 16, I am Adonai. Verse 18, I am Adonai. Verse 25, I am Adonai your God. Verse 27, I am Adonai. Verse 30, I am Adonai. Verse 31, I am Adonai your God. Verse 34, the outsider dwelling among you shall be as the native born among you. You shall love him as yourself, for you dwelled as outsiders in the land of Egypt. I am Adonai your God. Verse 36, honest weights and balances. I am Adonai your God. And then finally in verse 37, he says, you must observe all my statutes, all my boundaries, and all my mishpatim, all my ordinances, all of the areas of justice and right dealing and righteous governance that I've put. Do them. Ani Adonai. I am Adonai. So that you will be holy, his holiness is connected to his character, to his name, to his, you remember, this is who he is, and he is in a category of one. And so we saw when we were in Exodus 34, that his name, his glory, his character is intimately connected to his holiness. His character, we see, listen, in Exodus 34:5. Adonai descended in the cloud, stood with Moses there as he called on the name of Adonai. And then Adonai passed before him, verse 6, and he proclaimed, he calls out his name, Adonai, Adonai, Rachum v'chanun, the compassionate and gracious God who is compassionate, the God who has the love of a mother, it really says. Rachum is womb love, is compassion. He is the compassion of a mama. That's the first thing he says about himself. And he is gracious. He is kind. He is slow to anger, slow to flare his nostrils, or patient, long-suffering, some old-fashioned translations. Slow to anger. He is abundant. He is great, abounding, overflowing in chesed, in loving kindness and truth. Showing chesed, verse 7, showing love, showing covenant love to thousands, it says, or to 1,000 generations, forgiving iniquity, lifting up, bearing up our twistedness, bearing up our transgression, our rebellion, bearing up our errors, our sin. Yet by no means leaving the guilty unpunished, but bringing the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children to the third and the fourth generation. And so his name, and even there again, I know I've said this, but I'll reiterate it for maybe someone who's with us for the first time. Sometimes people get hung up on that, bringing the iniquity of the fathers upon the children's children to the third and the fourth generation. And really what is being expressed there, he forgives sin and extends chesed love to thousands, to 1,000 generations. And you see that he brings the impact of sin. he limits. So sometimes we experience, right? We experience the overflow of the generations that have gone before us, things that your parents or grandparents did. Some of if there were abuses or there were things that have their sin and their errors, the consequences of that have impacted you, but the Lord graciously, in his justice, there's still graciousness, and where there's that limitation to the third and the fourth generation versus showing chesed to 1,000 generations. So his name speaks to his character, to who he is. He's compassionate. He is compassionate like none other, right? A category of one. He is gracious like none other. He holy, a category of one. There's no one as slow to anger as he is. He is loving like none other. Like none other. He is more loving than the most loving person that you could even begin to imagine. He loves more. He is true through and through in like his holiness is the fullness of every one of his attributes. He is like this, like none other. He is forgiving like none other in a category of one. He is just and righteous like none other in a category of one. He is completion, perfection, every good and perfect thing, pure and patient beyond compare. Right? There is none like him. Category of one, and we now are his people, called by his name. We are to reflect his character. So he is holy, set apart in a category of one, and so we are to be not like every other nation on the world, but set apart, reflecting him and his character uniquely. The uniqueness of the fullness of his character is to be demonstrated among his people in the way and that we are toward him, in the way that we are toward one another, that it is set apart. He says, so you are Qedoshim, you are set apart ones. I have chosen you. Again, so what does that mean for us to be holy? What does it mean to be set apart? A lot of times we define holiness in a way that makes it synonymous with sinlessness. Oh, you think you're so holy. What do we mean when we say that? Oh, you think you're sinless. You think you're so holy. Or someone will say, you know what we need today? We need holiness. And they'll say it just like that. And we think that what that means is we need to be pure and sinless. And indeed we do need to be increasingly purified and cleansed and not walking in sin. But I would suggest that having less and less sin in my life is not what makes me holy, but rather me being holy will lead to less and less sin in my life. That the removal of sin is the byproduct of holiness. So when you submit yourself to God, he has chosen, when he brought his people up and he says, you are a holy nation. And I made you into a holy nation. And yet he calls us to walk in that. Right? That the result of being set apart, the result of submitting to him becomes less and less sin in my life, more and more like him, more and more a reflection of his character. And so it can be confusing, but it's me in my own strength sinning less isn't what makes me holy, but me submitting to him and saying, I want to be like you, set apart for you, reflecting your character, reflecting your holiness will lead to less sin and more purity. I want to read something, and I have it on the screen here that I love, that Andrew Murray wrote this back in 1895. I've adjusted some of the language, so instead of saying Christ, I say Messiah. But he says, many of us would love to have sin taken away. Who loves to have a hasty temper? Who loves to have a proud disposition? Who loves to have a worldly heart? No one. We go to the Lord to take it away, and he doesn't do it. And we ask, why will he not do it? I've prayed very earnestly. He goes on, he says, it's because you wanted him to take away the fruit, the ugly fruits, while the poisonous root was to stay in you. You did not ask him that the flesh should be nailed to his cross, and that you should henceforth give up self entirely to the power of his Spirit. There is deliverance, but not in the way we seek it. And then he makes this analogy. So, and I see what, I think what James here says, I want this holiness. I'd like to transform my way of thoughts into this, please. I think that's all our desire, James. None of us are there yet. None of us are there yet. I'm not who I was, but I'm not who I'll be. So he makes this analogy. He says, suppose you went to a world, suppose you went to Picasso. You went to Picasso of 2025. And you came with a canvas and you said, this is the idea that you said, hey, Mr. Picasso, here's my canvas. Will you please paint a Picasso for me personally? Paint me one of your own masterpieces, please. And this master artist says, sure, I'm happy to do that. So here he is. He's in the park by the sidewalk painting a masterpiece for you, just like you've asked him to do. And someone walks through the park, and you hand them a paintbrush, and some paint. And you say, hey, can you go paint something on that for me? Right? And the guy goes over where Picasso is painting, and he makes a smiley face and writes, Biff was here. And one by one, different people come by, and with your permission, at your very invitation, they keep adding their stuff to the masterpiece that this master artist was attempting to paint. Finally, this artist says, look, I'm not going to compete with all of this. You asked me to paint a masterpiece. You asked me to paint a Picasso for you, but you've not committed this canvas entirely to me and me alone. Right? If you want me to paint you a masterpiece, I'm not sharing the canvas. Either I get it alone, right? Or when you're ready to give me the whole masterpiece, the whole canvas, then I can do my best work, right? But I'm not sharing the canvas. I'm available. I'll wait. Right? No brilliant artist would ever continue to work under those circumstances. The canvas has to be his and his alone. Set apart unto him, holy unto him, committed completely unto him. It's all yours. Do what you do. So what we do is we say, Lord, I'm yours, but not this part. Here, Lord, but I want this to paint in my life, and I want this to paint. Murray continues, he writes later, he says, people want the Lord to bestow his trouble upon them in taking away this temper or that other sin, though in their hearts they've not yielded themselves as utterly to his command and his keeping. It cannot be. But if you will come and give your whole life to his charge, Messiah Yeshua is mighty to save. He waits to be gracious. He waits to fill you with his Spirit. Right? Holiness is being a canvas set apart for him alone. It's a question of surrendering the whole of your life to him and him alone, to daily laying down our rights, to our sinful desires, giving only the Lord the right to paint on this canvas. And the more we're willing to do that, to fully surrender, to fully entrust the brilliance of this artist, to entrust ourselves to his brilliance, the more and more we'll see that the anger and the rage and the lust and the pride and the need for people's approval, all that stuff will keep falling off and by the wayside as he is given full control. When I'm holy unto you, I will be yours and yours alone. I will be uniquely yours. And the more I do that, and I say, I'm going to let you have the very edges of my field, I'm going to let you have the very edges of my life, the more I will look like him when I let him have his way completely in me. Leviticus 19 then, and we're not going to be, obviously we're near the end, but we're not going to be able to go through all of it, but let's just touch on it a little bit. It gives us pictures of what his character looks like in practice, demonstrated in us. He says, Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the whole congregation of this circle, the whole circle of the children of Israel, and tell them, you shall be Qedoshim, because I, Adonai, your God, am Kadosh. I am holy. So right at the gate, he says, each one of you is to, he uses the word respect, he uses the word fear, like it's the word that's used for fear of the Lord, to honor, to revere. Respect his mother and his father, right? And to keep my Shabbatot. I am Adonai, your God. The first command, so he reiterates several of the 10 commandments that have to do with how we deal with him and how we deal with one another. And he begins by telling us to have a fear, an honor, or respect of our parents, who he has put in our lives, that ideally they're supposed to be reflecting his character to us. And the reverencing, the caring of your parents is to include, we see later, the taking care of your parents when they're old. The Ten Commandments makes mention, and the mother is mentioned first, perhaps because she is more prone to be neglected when the husband first dies. So, but he wants, it starts at home. It starts in your family relationships. And then the Lord points to his Shabbats, which we've talked about in the past, how Shabbat, this place of rest, is the intersection of, on this day, it's set apart for the Lord. And when he calls me to set something apart, that it's his and his alone, and it's a day that is focused on him, but Shabbat extends to those who are your servants and even to your animals, right? So it's this intersection of loving God and loving people in the way that God has loved you. He has given you rest. Now you extend that rest, and we see it. So you do that. You keep my Shabbats. Verse 4, do not turn to idols. Do not turn aside to idols. Do not turn aside to make molten gods or craft gods for yourselves. I am Adonai, your God. And starts talking about when you bring a sacrifice of shalom, fellowship offerings, you're to offer it so it may be accepted, so that it comes with favor, he says. You to bring it in such a way so that it comes with favor. It's to be eaten the same day you offer it, he says. And the next day. But if anything remains until the third day, it's to be burned with fire. If it's eaten at all on the third day, it is offensive. It's gone bad. It's disgusting, he says. It will not be accepted. It's not favorable at that point. Rather, anyone who eats it will bear his iniquity, since he has profaned, treated as ordinary, or polluted that which is set apart or holy to the Lord, and that soul will be cut off from his people. So perhaps what this is speaking to, these shalom offerings, these fellowship offerings that are to be to partake, you're to sacrifice it and then partake of it right away, speaks to the ongoing, fresh, daily relationship with God. I'm not supposed to be relying on something that was from way back when, 3 days ago. Yeah, I already did that. No, there's a freshness. Otherwise, what's 3 days ago is spoiled meat. No, it's holy unto the Lord. And it's to be, these fellowship offerings are supposed to be coming to him, not as common. When you treat that relationship with him as common, as no big deal, we forfeit the graciousness of the Lord. He says he'll bear his iniquity. He's going to deal with the consequences of that. So the Lord is dealing with these important things. Honor your parents. Keep my Shabbats. Be intentional about your fellowship with the Lord. Keep it fresh. And now the Lord turns to some very specific commands. He's describing in practice a way of being that reflects his compassion, that reflects his concern, his generosity of spirit. A lot of people argue with Leviticus 19, 9, and 10 if it's given as a command, not as a suggestion. It says when you reap, when you gather the harvest of your land, you're not to reap. It says you're not to bring to completion, to fulfillment, the very corners of your field. And you're not to gather the gleanings of your harvest. You're not to pick the leftovers, the remnants of your vineyard. Nor are you to gather the fallen grapes of your vineyard. Instead, leave those. Leave those for the poor, for the afflicted, and leave those for the outsider. I am Adonai, your God. So he says, be holy as I am holy. Well, this is a part of holiness that looks like, this is what God is like. Be holy as I am holy. And he says, at the edges of your field, I want you to be aware of the needy. All that you've worked for, you're harvesting that. Recognizing that everything that we have, he's given to us. Even at the center of our fields. He's not taking away the blessing that he's given us. But he doesn't want us to be stingy with it. He doesn't want us to be greedy with it. To be selfish with it. To be unconcerned about others because I have so much and it's all mine. He says, don't do that. Don't you dare do that. You leave it. That stuff fell on the ground. You leave it. Leave it. What are you doing? I've given you so much. Be concerned about the poor. Be concerned about, leave the gleanings, leave the leftovers. You don't have to